days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time, and more decisions had to be made, Alex, even after the 53. We knew the 53 wouldn't be completely final, and they've already started making moves, and then also signing to the practice squad. So we have a lot to talk about, and a lot of players joining the ranks, a lot of familiar faces, but a couple that were coming from other teams as well.
Exactly. A couple new faces, a couple of new guys, and still some room for them to even make even more moves, but a lot of stuff that didn't really surprise us too much. But before we get too far into the coverage here and talking about this and the 49ers new practice squad, you got to make sure you hit that like button. Got to make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Be like Mr. Brian Van Beek down there, the big, bold, big block. He joined, literally became a subscriber as we were mic checking for the episode. We appreciate that, Brian. Welcome to the Cutback crew. I only wish he had done it like 15 seconds later, because then we could have chalked another one up for the good guys. But it's A-okay. Welcome to the Cutback crew, my guy. And let's dive into this now, Ant, because like you talked about, a lot of roster moves being made and a lot of familiar faces on this 49ers practice squad.
Yeah, so I think the first thing let's do is let's go ahead and talk about the injured reserve. The 49ers went ahead and put Dontae Harris on the injured reserve and Maurice Hurst. Hurst was not surprising. We knew he had the ankle sprain, the high ankle sprain, which was going to make him out for 4 weeks. So short-term IR was always the plan. We knew that he had to make it to the initial 53 so that way they could IR him and not lose him. Harris was a surprise. John Lynch reported that and said that Harris has had a hamstring issue twice in 10 days, that they needed to do that. So he will be eligible to return week 4. And so that created some corresponding moves, and those corresponding moves were, welcome back Dontae Johnson. You are now on this roster, so I don't know if that means we're right about him being on the 53 or wrong, because apparently the only reason they did Harris the way they did is because they knew they were going to re-sign Dontae Johnson. So yeah, so we got that. And then
I'm going to count it as a win.
Yeah, so our percentage points go up. I like it. And then also Jake Brendel, the center, which we had talked about. If it wasn't Sean Coleman, we thought it was going to be Brendel. They needed to keep 11 linemen to make sure D linemen did not lose Maurice Hurst. So now they bring back Brendel, who had an excellent camp, and they're able to kind of stabilize the interior offensive line. So all the talk about the 49ers offensive line depth is not good enough. Now you add Brendel, who can play center and guard, to go along with, Banks and more of the rookies. And of course, Tom Compton, who it appears nobody wants on this football team. But those are the 4 backups behind the starting unit.
Yeah, that is going to be the backups behind the starting unit. And I do want to talk just a little bit more about this Dontae Harris, Dontae Johnson situation, because it's extremely surprising. I know a lot of people are still confused. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about, I don't understand why they did this if they were just going to bring Dontae Johnson back. And the idea behind this, right, is the reason why you kept Dontae Harris is you knew you were going to eventually stash him away on IR, but you had a better feeling that Dontae Johnson was going to slide and slip and fall back to a guy you could pick up on your practice squad. Whereas, like you had talked about a little bit in the Big Takeaways episode yesterday, Dontae Harris, there was someone else who could have potentially put another claim in for him. And so if the Niners are sitting there looking at it going, someone else was already trying to grab this guy, we want to keep him around. We want to be able to keep both of these guys available for the 53-man roster at some point in time, or, just for the short term. How can we accomplish that? Because if we let Dontae Harris go, there's a good chance the team who tried to claim him already is going to make another move, or someone else who maybe didn't have a chance before trying to swoop in on this guy. Whereas Dontae Johnson literally played like no preseason, so no one really got to see anything outside of what happened in practice and whatever happened in the joint practice sessions with the Chargers. So it's going to be a lot easier to sneak this guy by some teams who maybe aren't paying attention or are looking at other players around the league who actually put some film out there.
Yeah, and Seattle always claims 49ers players. They claim Dakota Shepley, and they probably would have claimed this guy. That is what they do. Arizona also with Malcolm Butler going on that reserve retired list means they probably would have claimed him too, because it's not just about getting the player, it's also about getting the information. Mm-hmm. So you get a player that you're at least interested in, and then you get that information from them as well. So I get what they did. They wanted to make sure that they could secure this guy, keep him, stash him, You had faith in Dontae Johnson that he would re-sign, that you could, he's been loyal to the 49ers for how many years now? So you could go to him with this plan and you can make it work. Same with Jake Brendel. It's like, hey, guys, you're going to come back the day after. We're going to make sure we get you taken care of. And these guys waited and then went ahead and took care of business. So, but we did lose 3 players that are not going to be on our practice squad that were claimed. We talked about Dakota Shepley going to Seattle. We also had Simba Webster, which he went to the Bears. And I know everyone was super upset about this one all over Twitter. It's not a huge deal, and we'll get into that why, because there's other things the 49ers did on the practice squad. But then you lost Justin Hilliard to the New York Giants. The New York Giants like claiming 49ers. They did this with Caden Smith, and they did it with the wide receiver last year.
Dante Pettis,
thank you. And then now Justin Hilliard. So this is what the Giants do. They poach on 49ers players. It's worked for them in the past, especially with Caden Smith, and not so much for Pettis because he got released.
He did.
But Justin Hilliard was a nice young player, but the 49ers took care of the linebacker position in the practice squad as well. So, Alex, let's get into the practice squad, who they signed, and then if there's room for other guys.
There's going to be, right? Because right now, as of this moment, we just saw 2 names that just came through as we were recording this. As of this moment, there's 15 names. Of those 15, though, one of them is the pasta man, Alfredo Gutierrez. He doesn't actually count against this number. So technically, we have 14 guys signed, and that means 2 more spots still available. Let's start with the wide receiver room. They brought back River Craycraft. They stashed him on the practice squad, and surprisingly, Travis Benjamin, the subsequent move. This is why I think you don't feel this is as big of a deal losing a guy like Simba Webster down there, because you have a guy like Travis Benjamin now on this practice squad who can kind of be that guy who can come up, definitely can float if there's some injuries at the wide receiver position up onto this roster. He adds something in the special teams return game and the over-the-top threat.
Yeah, and early on in the season, if you need him to handle the return game, he can. You can bring him up as one of those guys that you protect and bring up as the 55 men that are active and make somebody else inactive and use him in that role. That's only early on, though. You can't do that the whole season. You can only do it 2 consecutive weeks. But it's an early on plan. So if you need to do that while Brandon Ayuk is getting healthy and all that, you can. So they left themselves some flexibility. The fact that we talked about this on the other episode was maybe Travis Benjamin didn't want to move his family either. He wants to be here. He wants to play in San Francisco. And this gives him an opportunity still to produce for the team. And he knows that injuries happen in football. And there's 1 injury away from being up on the main roster for the rest of the season.
And he is the next guy in line. 100%. It's not River Craycraft.
No, I would actually say that if, as far as Craycraft goes, I think the 49ers could actually upgrade that second wide receiver spot on the practice squad, which ultimately they might do.
Who would you want them to upgrade it with?
Well, I want to see the whole list of people that are still going to be out there.
It's true.
I don't know who is landed, who got claimed, and all that. I didn't go into it too much.
There hasn't been. Well, it's still a lot of flexibility right now because teams are still making moves, and guys now have gone from the waiver aspect to now being clear and free off waivers. So they can go really sign with anybody, right? So just because a team offers them something doesn't mean they have to necessarily take it anymore at this point either.
Yeah, I think the one guy that jumps out at me that I would take a chance on is Dante Pettis. I would bring him back since. For this reason, he already knows the system. He was a second-round talent in the 49ers' eyes. You can go throw him on the practice squad, and we talked about return ability. This is somebody, you were looking at Simba Webster as somebody that could potentially give you a good look in practice, as far as special teams. Dante Pettis can do that too. He's the NCAA leader all time in punt returns. He's really good. You can use him in that way. Do I think he's going to contribute to this team in the season? Probably not, but at least you would have him in case you needed him. A guy that you gave up on him, but you can still use him if needed. I don't think it's a bad idea. I know people are going to think it's crazy that you don't like it. A lot of people are just down on Dante Pettis, but we're talking practice squad here. We're talking about a guy that can go out there and compete, give you different looks in practice, and he's very good at running after the catch. So he could be able to emulate some of these other players they're going to go against. To me, he's more dynamic than a River Craycraft. And that's really what you're trying to do, right? Upgrade at every position. I don't even know if he'd be willing to come. I don't know if Kyle's ready to let him out of the doghouse. But I hope that he just, lets him come in and run around the yard a little bit and have some fun, because I think it is an upgrade over Craycraft.
That is the $1 million question. Is he out of the doghouse? Because if he is, then this is definitely an option. And if he's not, Kyle Shanahan's saying stay away with the 10-foot pole.
Oh, agreed. I mean,
get out of here, Dante. Yeah, get out of here, Dante.
Yeah, they might not touch this. I think when I'm looking at it, I'm always looking to upgrade even the practice squad.
That's you should be.
Yeah,
you definitely should be. And look, that's fair. I like that a lot. It's definitely something to consider. Also, need to look at what other names are still available
100%.
out there. Because there's still guys like Golden Tate who are out there that, if he can't make an actual 53-man roster, if no team's willing to take a chance on him and sign him, waive somebody, stash someone on IR or whatever, maybe he wants, to go roll on a practice squad somewhere and try and earn his way in. I highly doubt it.
I think he'll retire.
I think he will too, but we'll see what happens with that there. Look, from the wide receiver position, let's stick with the tight ends as well, receiving options. The Niners just signed one, Tanner Hudson. They're going to be putting him on the practice squad from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a big body guy.
Yeah, what it is because Michael Pruitt's going to the Titans practice squad.
Accurate.
The 49ers must have completely been done with Michael Pruitt. We were done with Michael Pruitt. He wasn't really showing anything in practice. He spent most of the time injured, and then when he was out there, didn't really produce to the level of the film that we had saw from previous years. So Kyle Shanahan was over this, so they knew they needed to make an adjustment. It makes sense for Pruitt to go back to the Titans, the system that he's familiar with. He fits that role, and it's going to be on their practice squad. And they bring in Hudson as a potential blocking tight end. If something happens to Warner, you're set. But they didn't finish there because they addressed the tight end position again with Jordan Matthews. So now they got the receiving threat. They got the blocking threat. We knew this was going to happen with Matthews. It just made the most sense. There's two people you understand are going to be on the 49ers roster every single year. And no, it's not George Kittle and them. No, it's Matthews and it's Dontae Johnson. Somehow they're going to end up being with the 49ers organization.
In some way, shape, or form. And look, the Jordan Matthews one doesn't surprise me. You and I both said this was most likely going to be what ended up happening.
Yeah.
The Niners weren't going to keep 4 tight ends. They were going to roll with 3. And if they rolled with 3, then Jordan Matthews was going to be the tight end that got stashed. It happened. Not a surprise to us. He showed a lot of promise. He definitely looks good in the receiving aspect of the game. By no means is this guy Jordan Reed levels of talented in the receiving game, because if he was, he would be on this 53-man roster. But he's definitely an upgrade over a lot of other guys out there. The route running is not the concern with him. It's everything else. It's the blocking, the understanding of the scheme, pass pro, things of that nature that he has to clean up on. Now he's going to have a full year on this practice squad to develop. And if something more drastic to happen in that tight end room and some injuries happen, you can bring this guy up and not lose as much in the receiving game, which is what you need. And that's what he's there for, to secure.
Yeah, if Ross Dwelley goes down, you bring up Jordan Matthews. If Charlie Warner goes down, you bring up Hudson. I think that is what you're looking at right now. Is kind of they have that set. Of course, that could change. If Jordan Matthews develop his blocking game, which he's working so hard at, that is the one thing about this guy. He outworks everyone. I love the work ethic from him, and I put nothing past him being able to develop into a very legitimate option for the 49ers at tight end. And if something was to happen in the tight end room, you can count on this guy to go up there and give you every single piece of effort that he has.
Absolutely. Absolutely indeed. Safety. Okay, safety's up next. Jared Maiden gets stashed there on the practice squad. We like to see that. This is a guy we have a lot of high hopes and expectations for. Still a young man. He's 23 years old. So by no means is this guy near his peak. This guy's still climbing and growing as a player. And it could still be another 2 to 3 years before this guy starts to get closer to what his actual potential could be and could show. So this is a guy who's still got a lot of time to develop. We both thought, well, you thought mostly, and I thought it was a possibility, that there was a chance they could trade this guy if someone liked what they saw out of him on film. They didn't end up making the move. And thank God, because now you're able to stash this guy away and give him more time to develop even further.
Yeah, I like another year of development. I think that it's only going to help this guy. He's one of those guys that has a lot of flexibility in where he can play, from playing in the nickel to playing both safety positions. He's able to do all of that. He can play in the box, play the deep third. The only thing is he's not able to play at the level of the other guys that are on the roster right now. He's just behind them. And it's not anything against him. It's a very talented room. I mean, these guys have been playing in the 49ers system for a while, the top 2 guys. And then when you add Tavon Wilson, who's a very talented, free agent that they were able to use, and he fits well in the system. And then the rookie that's coming out of nowhere. I mean, we shouldn't say out of nowhere because we knew who he was, but he's coming up there and really shocking everyone with the fact that he's added a lot of coverage skills to the way he plays in the box. To me, it's just there was no room for him. There was no room for Maiden, but I love that he made it to the practice squad. I feel comfortable with him being there. And ultimately, if he has to come up during the season, I know we can count on him. If he needs snaps, he can make plays. And if he needs to play special teams, we can definitely count on him there. So I like the move overall. And people, don't forget, even though Marcel Harris is a linebacker, in a pinch, we still have Marcel Harris to play safety.
He can still play safety. So there really wasn't a lot of room for him. And that's okay, because next year that might not be the case with some of these guys' contracts coming up and guys moving on. This could be that last year bit of development that he needs to get him ready for a potential opportunity and real shot and roll and chance to make this 53-man roster in the future.
Don't be surprised if at some point someone doesn't try to sign him off the practice squad.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me at all. Next up, we got to acknowledge this gentleman because while he didn't make the 53-man practice squad, 53-man roster, Anthony, he did make the 16-man practice squad. The tribal chief takes over as the head of the table now with the 49ers practice squad. Nate Sudfeld. I mean, this is what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
The Niners did keep 3 quarterbacks, but only 2 are active, and one's down there just sitting and waiting in case something happens. And it's the guy that we both thought was going to be the guy. If the Niners kept a third guy around, it was going to end up being Nate Sudfeld.
Yeah.
He proves us right. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And I like him down there getting an opportunity to develop a little bit more, get more comfortable with the system. And like we've talked about, if it gets past Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, you're in trouble anyway. But Nate Sudfeld throws a pretty ball. Maybe with some time, maybe with time, he'll be more comfortable in the system. He would just need to go in if something were to happen catastrophically and take out both of our quarterbacks and just not make mistakes. Is he ready to do that right now? I don't know. Who knows what happens down the line?
You're not going to win a lot of football games with Nate Sudfeld.
Accurate.
What you are going to get, though, is somebody that can run the scout offense and do a respectable job if he needs it. Also, a guy that's played in the league that doesn't need reps. He's not going to get any reps in practice. So you got to have this guy ready. And the only reason he's going to be ready and on the field is if one of those other guys get hurt. And you have the questions with Jimmy Garoppolo every year. And I think Jimmy's going to stay healthy. He looks healthy. But you have Sudfeld just in case. And he can get you through 1 or 2 games. And that's the extent of it. If he has to play longer than that, your season is pretty much over. So this was not a no-brainer. You follow the money. $250,000 in his contract. And what do they get on the practice squad if they are a veteran? $250,000. 100% that was already lining up. The 49ers had this idea in mind. Kyle Shanahan's comments way back about having 2 quarterbacks on the roster and 1 on the practice squad is ideal. It came to fruition, and this is what it was going to look like. I think if they're being truthful, they always planned on it being Sudfeld. It was never going to be Rosen because they already knew Rosen was inconsistent. Sudfeld at least is more consistent. We didn't get to see it in the preseason, but we saw it at training camp. He can at least complete passes at a consistent rate, but really, if you get to that third guy, like you said, the season is kaput. Especially if you can't, if it's more than 1 or 2 games. But if for some reason, let's say Jimmy got hurt and you had Trey out there and Trey got nicked up and you had to count on Sudfeld for a quarter, you could count on him to get in there and run the offense and not lose the football game for you. He's not going to go win it, but he's not going to lose it either.
Take that ball from the center, turn around and hand it off to Raheem Mostert, my good guy, and find George Kittle in the flats.
One of those running backs.
Any one of them.
Yeah.
Any one of them, in all honesty. Look, let's talk about from quarterback to cornerback. That was another move that was made, late yesterday. D. Virgin, he was on the New England Patriots squad coming into the 2021 season. He gets released, he gets cut. D. Virgin gets signed to the 49ers practice squad now. That cornerback depth, especially now with Dontae Johnson up right on the active 53-man roster. The Niners didn't have a corner down there. They bring this guy in. 27 years old, played at West Alabama. Don't know much about him other than that. Doesn't have a lot of games under his belt. No starts in his career. He's played a total of 21 games in 3 seasons since 2018 with Detroit, and he wasn't starting with Detroit, and Detroit didn't have a very good secondary. So, connect the dots.
Yeah, I kind of expected this to be Alexander Myers, and the fact that it's not and it's D. Virgin, a guy that I've really never heard of, kind of means that I think this is going to change at some point. I don't know how long D. Virgin will be with the team, but they're going to bring him in. They're going to take a look at him. One of those ways is to bring him on the practice squad. He is familiar with the Detroit area, so maybe that plays into it somewhat. You never know what these guys are thinking. There's always a backdrop to this. So maybe they're looking at another angle that we're not really thinking of right now, because to me this didn't make a lot of sense. But there's been a lot of times the 49ers bring in people that it didn't make a lot of sense, and then it ends up panning out. Skill set wise, you put them in the right scheme. So let's see how it plays out. I think it's more the earlier thought process where they're using him for intel and then ultimately using his skill set for a certain thing, and then it's gonna change. And it could change in a few weeks because they're gonna have to make a decision ultimately when Dontae Johnson and Harris are both going to be on the roster. One of them is going to have to go, and you're going to want to put one of them on the practice squad. So one of these guys needs to go.
That's true. That's very true indeed. Look, speaking of things that didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense, Colton McKivitz got cut. But Colton McKivitz did sneak his way down onto this practice squad. So now you have a guy down here who they could potentially suit up as one of their 55 guys, right?
Yeah.
On game days, because he's that extra additional lineman. Doesn't count against them. They can do that. So this is nice. I think this was kind of what the Niners were hoping for, and John Lynch kind of hinted to that as much.
Yeah, John Lynch talked about this is a perfect, grounds for him to be able to get better. One thing that people need to take into account as well, the way that the practice squad is built, you're only allowed to have so many veterans on your football team, on your practice squad. So if they would have cut Tom Compton and then tried to get him on the practice squad, they might have not had enough veteran roster spots for him. So they keep him on the main roster, and they cut Colton McKivitz, knowing that Colton McKivitz won't get claimed, or him or Dakota Shepley won't get claimed, one of them. And then they're able to put the other one on the practice squad and use him, like you said, in that extra role.
And that is, you were 100% right. Travis Benjamin, Jordan Matthews, Nate Sudfeld, Senio Calamete, Corbin Kafasi. That's already 5 right there. And then Alex Barrett. There's 6. There's your 6 vets right there. So if you tried to cut Tom Compton, one of those guys wouldn't have been able to be on this practice squad.
Yeah, so they're trying to play games with the fact they need to balance practice squad and 53-man roster. So a lot of times it doesn't make sense initially when you hear the Tom Compton thing, but that's why they needed to keep Tom Compton. They needed to keep Colton McKivitz. They wanted to keep Senio Clemente. They had ideas of how they wanted to build this, and they're executing. And does he need development? Yes, he does. And the fact game film showed it, and I think that's why people didn't claim him, because his game film just wasn't that good. But this gives him an avenue to be able to get a kind of a gut check. He can go out there and get better, keep working with this offensive line coach, Coach Forrester, get better, and maybe he can earn his spot back on the roster at some point. Because you know as well as I do, at some point there's going to be an injury. So who's it going to be that goes up and fills a role? It could be him. I think they had some confidence in him, but yeah, this is definite gut check. Like, dude, you better step up your game, or you're not going to be in the NFL much longer.
Yeah, he's going to have to get it done for sure. And after he made that point, light bulb. That's exactly what was going on, right? You got to find Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are looking at this roster and going, how can we keep 9 of these guys, all 9 of these guys, and keep them around in terms of being available and able to be on this team, but also keep the talent at the D-line, keep the talent at wide receiver, keep the talent at running back.
Yeah.
How do we keep all of these guys here? How do we hold on to 6, corners and do this? And they found the path to do it. Thank God that they did, because, if you let Colton McKivitz go and someone else, snags him up and claims him, you're sitting there going, oh, Jesus, now we got to scramble and find someone else that is going to be a better replacement. Because this is a guy we thought was going to be comfortable on this 53-man roster. Looks like he's going to be comfortable on the 55-man roster.
Yeah, I think he's going to be used, and they'll probably, the way that they have him and Clemente, both guys can play interior.
Right.
So you have some flexibility there. I think you can still see an upgrade from Kafasi. Eventually maybe a different offensive lineman. That's the one thing you're going to see with this practice squad. It's going to fluctuate during the season, depending on what skill sets they need from these players, how their 53-man roster is playing out, and then ultimately what team they're going to be playing. Sometimes you want to bring in a certain player on your practice squad that gives you a look that the other team is going to be, using. For instance, if you're going to be going against the Seahawks, you might want a big receiver like a Kevin White or something like that to come in and play on your practice squad. So you sign him, you use him for a little bit. The only problem is the 49ers do have to watch the salary cap and how much money they spend there. So if they're younger players, they're a lot less money against the salary cap. You pay a lot less for a rookie player than you do for a veteran player, with the veteran players getting that $250,000. So it's going to be a $3 million practice squad, and most of it's with those veterans. So you just got to be careful about how you do it, so younger players make more sense for your practice squad.
They always are going to. It's just, that's the natural way of it. You want those guys to not only develop, but not have to pay a whole lot out, spend that money on your 53-man roster. And you just talked about the other two names after Colton McKivitz, Senio Calamete, Corbin Kafasi, and then, of course, the pasta man, Alfredo Gutierrez, down there on this practice squad. Again, not a guy that's a shocking. We anticipated him to be there. It's great because he gets to be there. He doesn't take up an additional spot. So you get to technically keep 17 instead of 16. So if you're the 49ers, it's a good deal.
Yeah, he's part of the NFL international program, so he doesn't have to count against a roster spot. So you can go ahead and keep him. It's clear he's definitely nowhere near close. But you see this a lot.
He didn't even get in a preseason game.
No, he didn't. And you see this a lot with, these international players. It's a hard development. It's hard for them to come in and be able to adjust to the game right away. But he's still 6'8", 340 pounds. So adjustment, you like the size.
They have him listed as 6'9", 332, Ant.
I'm sorry. I forgot to read the program this week.
It's okay. It's fine.
It'll probably fluctuate. Next week he'll be like 6'10", like 350.
He'll be 6'10", 350, and then the week after that he'll be 6'7", like a cool 325.
From Death Valley or Parts Unknown.
Yeah, definitely. And then the gong tolls, right? The lightning bolt hits the middle of the field. Smoke rises. Mariachi band plays, and here comes Alfredo Gutierrez.
Wow.
Amen. Mariachi band. They know what they're doing, bro.
They do. I've been to a few weddings with mariachi bands.
Solid.
Very exciting.
Solid. I didn't realize how Hispanic that my dad's side of the family was until I showed up at a family reunion with a mariachi band playing. I was like, oh, no, this runs deep. I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it a lot. Look, Elijah Sullivan, next linebacker. We weren't able to keep Justin Hilliard. Shucks. I hate it. I really, really wanted to keep this guy around.
Yeah.
But Elijah Sullivan showed a lot of promise, a lot of good things as well. We were able to keep one of these two undrafted linebackers, stash them away on the practice squad.
I'm curious which one the 49ers actually wanted to keep more.
I think it's Hilliard.
I mean, you might be right. But the reason I'm saying that is because if you watch Sullivan fly around in that game, that dude was flying around with some intense speed and being able to hit at a high level. When you were watching the linebackers, it seemed like Jonas had the best feel. Jonas Griffith had the best feel for how to play linebacker, and the other two guys were superior athletes. But Justin Hilliard was an inside linebacker. That's how they were, using him. Where Sullivan was playing on the outside, and when you got all pro Fred in the middle, a lot of times it's the outside backer that makes the most difference. So if you have an injury to Aziz or Flanagan Foles or one of those guys, it makes sense. But I am curious overall what they thought, and it could have been as simple as, we know we have to cut both these guys, and as long as we can keep one, we will be okay.
Very true. Very, very true indeed. And they got one. They got at least one. I wanted both, but I'll take one instead of none. Josh Hockett, fullback, not a surprise. Darion Daniels from the D-line makes it back down to this practice squad, as does Alex Barrett. Two names. We're not shocked by it all. I'm actually a little surprised that no one took a shot at Alex Barrett and went after him. And tried to get him onto their practice squad, or even giving him a shot at 53.
Yeah, and no Yarborough. I mean, that's another thing to look at. But you got Alex Barrett. I think the 49ers are confident in what he can do. He produced last year in 2020, had a pretty good campaign. And I think he just continues to develop. He gets a little bit better, shows some explosiveness off the edge. The one thing with him has always been the weight. Can he set the edge against the run? It seems like it's getting better and better because his technique is solid. The way that he, maneuvers and uses his body and his hands has gotten better and better since he worked with Chris Kasarik. So I think that he's a nice practice squad piece and somebody you feel comfortable with in case an injury happens. He can go in and be a rotational piece. But once again, there's still going to be huge decisions up there. I mean, it's always nice to have defensive linemen that you can count on. But Jordan Willis is going to be coming back after 6 weeks, and there's going to be more decisions. Maurice Hurst is going to come back, probably week 4, and there's going to be huge decisions. So the 49ers are sitting pretty at defensive line, but I don't think it shocks anyone that you kept a outside and an inside player. As far as Darion Daniels goes, I haven't been a huge fan of him, but I thought he did have good moments this year where he looked okay, and he's a good against the run overall. He's a nice two-gapper, lacks a little bit of the athletic ability and explosion that somebody like a Kerr or those guys give you. So if he came in or came up, it would definitely be, a little bit of a struggle for this defense to be able to produce the way it does with the current 11 guys they have.
I think they want this guy to. I think they want this guy to lose a little bit more weight too, still, because he's 6'3", he's 211 pounds, he's 23 years old. So this isn't a guy with beat up, worn down legs. Just a little bit on the bigger side. If he could drop 10 pounds or so, 10, 15 pounds, put on 5 pounds of muscle, and be sitting at that 295 range at 6'3", may move around a little bit better. It may help him a little bit more, but we'll just have to see.
Well, he's a nose tackle. Well, he doesn't have the explosion to play 3-tech. It's probably why they don't want him at 295. If he had the explosion to play 3-tech, then they would definitely want him at the 295, 300 range. But in fact, you probably want him even bigger than this playing nose tackle. You think so?
I don't like the way he moves around.
Well, yeah, but think about your nose tackles right now. You got DJ Jones, he's 300 plus.
True.
You got Zach Kerr, that's closer to 330. But you got Kinlaw, closer to 325.
None of those guys.
Well, Kinlaw's a 3-tech, but he's a freak of nature.
He's also
but you notice that they went with a different size, right? He doesn't have the athletic ability of Maurice Hurst, so there's no way that he could play a 3-tech in this system. He's a two-gapper. I mean, that's really what he is. I don't know ultimately if he fits this defense. They've tried to make it work. He's just not I mean, there's a reason he's undrafted.
How many more chances is he going to get, you think?
Well, it's fine right now because you keep giving him chances, especially through the first couple of years.
And he's 23.
Yeah, he's only been with the team for a couple of years. He's still developing. Look at Kevin Givens. After a couple of years, he developed into a guy that you thought you could count on, and a lot of people had really high hopes for. So you give it time, you give it opportunity. Now, at some point, you're going to wash out, and somebody else is going to come in that's hungrier, that's bigger, faster, more athletic. So you have to make sure you hone your craft and get it down. But he has improved since last year. So, and you're talking about a guy I'm not a huge fan of him. The fact that I'm saying he has improved means that, he definitely has improved.
That's fair, because you don't go around throwing compliments out nicely if they haven't.
No, I don't.
Listen, we're a very positive podcast around these parts, but if you don't show it and we already don't like you, don't expect any praise. So the fact that this man over here, Coach Ant, is throwing out the compliments, tip my hat to you, Dan. It was a good job.
Yeah, at least he's getting compliments, unlike Mike Purcell, who I'll never compliment because
poor Mike.
He still has not improved, and I don't know how he keeps getting those contracts.
What is Mike Purcell doing out there?
Tim Ryan.
That was still one of the greatest calls.
I love it.
It was solid.
Yeah.
It was absolutely solid.
I don't know if it's as good as his haha one, but
ha ha ha. Freaking Papa, I swear. Cutback crew, 49ers fans, let us know what you thought about this 49ers practice squad.
We did forget about the possibility of them still talking to haha.
Okay, let's get to this. We got the ha. I got all excited with the ha 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 ha. This is something that was actually discussed and talked about a little bit. Lynch brought this up, correct?
Yeah, in a conference call. He said that they were in discussions or talking to haha. I think haha's waiting to get on a 53-man roster. He could sign at any point. But I think it is interesting that they're trying to get him to the practice squad. It's not surprising they have one safety on the practice squad, but they could definitely use two. But then it creates which veteran goes, so that way you can sign haha.
Yeah, because that's going to have to happen. They already got... Actually, I think they have 5 at the moment currently. Okay. So I think they have room technically for one more. If it is 6, then someone is going to have to go, and who in the world is that going to be? There are some names definitely out there, and we'll have to wait and see kind of just what route the Niners want to take with this, and if they want to bring him in. But let us know what you thought about this practice squad breakdown down below in the comment section right now. Love it, hate it, love the practice squad, hate the practice squad. Are you one of those people out there right now who's saying, why didn't the Niners just try and sneak Jalen Hurd onto the practice squad? That totally would have happened and worked, right? Teams are going out and grabbing Simba Webster. No one would have went after Jalen Hurd. He can't stay on the field. Or are you like us? You like the 53-man roster moves. The practice squad moves all make sense. It all kind of lines up logically with the 49ers plans and what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are scheming over there with this front office. We want to hear from you. And while you're down there commenting away, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Become a channel member so that way you get access to videos. You can continue to join the fantasy football and the Madden leagues. Fantasy Football League is officially, it's kibosh, it's cut off. We're done. We've already got our roster set. I'm sending out the emails tonight. We're getting that thing started, but the Madden League's got until Friday, so you can still join the channel members, get that taken care of, so that way you don't have to worry about any fees, dues, or anything. You're just good to go.
Yes, and there you can also jump over to Patreon, and there's a lot of good stuff over there from film breakdown where we put a Jalen Hurd film breakdown from the last game against the Raiders, pointing out, when he made mistakes and obviously when passes should have went in other areas. That's number one. Number two, there's other original content there that you can get from Big Yikes to a 49ers cutback in time to fantasy football and Madden gameplay that's going to be coming your way on Patreon. So go ahead and hop over there and become a patron. We would very much appreciate it. There's so many ways right now to interact with 49ers Cutback community and 49ers Cutback crew. Make sure you do that. It's exciting. It's fun.
Continue to support us. Continue to help this channel grow. It doesn't have to be Patreon. It doesn't have to be channel memberships. It can just be you liking it. It can just being you sharing it with the rest of the faithful. We appreciate all the support, all the new subs. Thank you so much. The OG Day Ones, we love y'all. We love the entire Cutback crew. And until next time, 49ers fans, you stay safe.
Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.